What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show bringing you all the action from the Premier League and Serie A, England and Italy. I am your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you this lovely evening?
Good, man. Good. Chilling. Week's almost done. The special Thursday edition of Top Bins. Sorry, I had a prior engagement yesterday, so
we've taken a short break at the end of the season because, truth be told, the final day of both seasons, I don't want to say it was anticlimactic because England was a little exciting and we've had some finals in between, but we are coming to you on Champions League final eve to preview that. We will discuss what happened on those final days of the league campaigns. We also made some predictions earlier in the year, Dom, that we have to remind ourselves of. Some things we got right, some things we got wrong, some things we got very wrong. We also did a fantasy draft of teams early in the season. We picked a bunch of teams about 7 or 8 weeks into the league campaign, and just kind of wanted to see where they would end up.
take your trophy now. Take it.
I gotta tell you, my friend, we did the double, and I gotta tell you, SerieA, I'm the Napoli of this. This shit was wrapped up in March, I think. But just to remind everyone, so we broke the league tables into 4 different brackets, and then we kind of had to go like serpentine. You can take from all the top bracket right away. We kind of shifted around. So Dom, here were the teams you had in England. You picked Arsenal, Spurs, Brighton, Liverpool, Brentford, Leeds, Bournemouth, Everton, Wolves, and West Ham. I had City, Manchester United, Fulham, Chelsea, Newcastle United, Southampton, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, and Leicester. I think the big takeaway there was I will say a little lucky with Aston Villa because I picked them very near the bottom. That was a nice come up for me. But the total point tally for the season was actually pretty close, truth be told. Dom, you had 430 points across the league campaign, a valiant effort, a pretty good effort. However, I topped you off with 461. It was a close affair. I don't want to besmirch you in any way.
The amount of points you got from Aston Villa was a great help to you in that third tier of matchups. Like, out of everything that we got, that helped out a lot for you.
I would like to say that I was consistent on one thing this year, and that is I always believed in Aston Villa. And we will get to that when we look at our preseason predictions. Some other things that jump out to me just looking at this is, this again just shows you kind of the level that City and Arsenal were on from this point on. This is taken from October and onward. So Arsenal were on 69 points from that game and 75 points from Manchester City. So it was still pretty tight margins. It wasn't exactly a runaway on either side. They were pretty neck and neck. Newcastle United had 64 points from that stage onwards. They really picked it up very well. They were sort of in the competitive arena, shall we say. They had the third highest point total from that. And it was an arbitrary, I think this was going into an international break. Or was it? I honestly don't remember. It was so long ago. I think Antonio Conte and Thomas Tuchel were still managing at Chelsea and Spurs, respectively. The world was much different. Messi not only had won with Argentina, yet he was still a PSG player. So it was it's a much, much different time in our lives. But anything else just to hit on in England before we recollect on our Serie A fantasy draft?
I don't know. I had faith in some teams. West Ham let me down this year.
West Ham did have largely a disappointing season.
West Ham let
domestically. European-wise, they had a great season and really their best ever. They have that going for them. Yeah, there was a few teams I think really let us down. Southampton really let me down. They had 18 points from this point forward when we selected them. So that tracks. They were in the basement for a large part of the season. Wolves had a nice turnaround. It's easy to forget Wolves were just hovering above the relegation zone. They have this tendency, I think, to maybe not get covered a whole lot, and that's because they're not typically a very exciting team. But I think quietly sort of just stayed safe and weren't really in much danger once Lopetegui came in. Now we don't know if Lopetegui is going to stay. That is certainly a question mark that we'll be following over the summer. But Wolves ended up having a pretty safe season when it was looking like that it could be real trouble for them.
Hey, I don't want to maybe upset you at all, but I was expecting your Liverpool to pull a little more weight for me in that second tier. I mean,
I'll say in that bracket they were the second best team. So the bracket that Liverpool were in were Fulham, Chelsea, Liverpool, Brentford, and Newcastle United. Only Newcastle United outpaced them, and Newcastle United were the third best team from this point on. So, some give and take. I think they had a pretty good run, all things considered.
Yeah, fair enough. Ah, sorry.
I could have dropped my croissant. All right, let's move to Italy, shall we? Where, Dom, you did have the eventual league champions in Napoli, which was a big advantage, I should say, because they ended up accruing 76 points over the course of our little fantasy season. So you had Napoli, Udinese, tough pick.
Yeah, let's not talk about that one, man.
Udinese, Roma, Juventus, Torino, Spezia, Salernitana, Hellas Verona, Cremonese, and Sampdoria. Some duds in there. I, on the other hand, had Atalanta, Lazio, Milan, Inter, Fiorentina, Sassuolo, Empoli, Lecce, Bologna, and Monza. Dom, the final point total, 393 points on Team Dominic, but however, 489 points for your boy.
96 points.
That is quite the margin. That is I don't want to call it a gulf, but that is. I will say you got some bad beats there.
Two of the teams in the fourth bracket were relegated, and I had both of them.
Yeah, you made some bad choices. Sampdoria by far your worst. They only accrued 17 points from that time forward. So that was definitely the dud of the entire group. I think
I should have had the.
That's the worst. That was the worst performing team across both leagues. Southampton had 18 points at least. You picked the absolute worst team performance-wise across England and Italy. So you got that going for you. You have that.
Yeah, that's a participation trophy at its finest right there.
That is the wooden spoon, which is what Messi's going to win with Inter Miami this year. The last place winners. It's great.
Woo! Yeah, I mean, I should have had the foresight to realize Udinese couldn't keep it up. That
was an eyebrow raiser at the time, and fair enough. You shot your shot, and it didn't work out for you. Juventus did, and by the way, I did not do the Juventus point deduction on this. I probably should have, but that felt mean.
I was gonna ask if they did or they did, if you did or you didn't. So.
I did not. I did not calculate this with the point deduction. So really, you should actually have 15 points less. But you know what? We don't abide by the same rules of law that Italy does. Me from Monza, who at the time were in the relegation spots. A very nice pickup. They had 51 points the rest of the season. They ended up having a very good campaign in Serie A this season. So. That was a nice come up. Both of us had Inter and Juventus, which were definitely two of the stronger teams in Italy. Again, Juventus without the points deduction are pretty good. And I stuck my faith with Lazio. I had some things to say about them in our preseason prediction. That was a course of habit across both these leagues. Is I kind of doubled down on some things I said in August, and I was like, yeah, we're just gonna let it ride. We're gonna let it ride. Anything to say before we move on from our fantasy? This was fun. I really enjoyed this. It was a great way to check in throughout the year and just see the progress of teams. And it's fun even now to look back and think, wow, Monza were in the relegation spots. But again, from December on, we're safe. We were not considering Monza for relegation anymore, right? And I think that's always a nice thing. Up the Monza for sure.
Italy's hottest new team, Berlusconi money, baby. Let's get it.
I mean, you know what that's like. You know better than most. Let's move on then to our preseason predictions. Well, I'll say this. Starting in the Premier League, we both got the champion right. We both picked Manchester City in preseason to win the title. Feel good about that. Here was my top 6. I had Manchester City finishing as top spot champions, Liverpool in second, Spurs in third, Arsenal in fourth, Chelsea in fifth, Manchester United in sixth. Dear listener, you know that is not correct. You know that I got it wrong. I got a lot of that wrong, actually. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say other than that I was wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. That's fine. I did technically get 2 out of the top 4 correct. We'll take it. I think that's fine. I did have, I guess, 4 of the top 6 correct. But yeah, disappointing season for Chelsea by a large margin. And I think putting Chelsea at 5th, I had in mind that maybe they weren't going to have a strong season, that this could be a little bit of a tough year for them. No one saw this coming, where they're finishing in the bottom half. And Manchester United, I did not believe were going to be as good as they were. And again, I was wrong on that. I do not think Erik ten Hag would make the difference that he did early on, or at least he seems to have made. It wasn't a sterling, competition for them, right? Like they had a really nice stretch from December to February, but injuries and fixture congestion caught up with them. Dom, here's your top 6. You had City as their champion, Liverpool in second. I appreciate it. Third, you had Spurs. 4th, Arsenal. 5th, United, and 6th, Chelsea. So again, pretty similar to mine. We just sort of mixed and matched in a few places. Anything come to mind when you look back at your predictions?
I should have included Brighton, to be honest.
Well, that's of course. And you should have picked Newcastle. And you should...
No. Listen, I did like the way that Brighton ended the season prior, so I should have stuck with them. I kind of overrated Spurs and Chelsea. And I didn't think that Arsenal would be that good either. So it was all over the place. But one thing holds true. City wins the league, right?
That is the one constant. I do think, it's important to remember, too, like Arsenal did not have a lot of hype coming into this year. That's why, for me, when we're talking about them bottling and them not winning the league, obviously, once your season goes that way and it feels like you have a shot at the title, to not win it feels disappointing. But again, top 4 at the beginning of the year for Arsenal would have been a raging success. The fans would have loved that and taken that. So, all things considered, I think they have a smart transfer window. They have a young team. I think you can expect that this hopefully is not their only title challenge. That is their way they're going to operate. But yeah, Chelsea have really fallen off. I'm curious to see how they rebound from this, because they're going to have another interesting transfer window. They've already lost N'Golo Kante. Mateo Kovacic seems gone. Looks like he's actually going to Manchester City. So some interesting times at Chelsea. They have like 37 new players to bet in. So they'll figure it out, I'm sure. Our bottom 3, boy, Dom, we did not get any of these right,
nope.
Which is shocking. However, a good chunk of these were in the danger zone, at least. So I had Everton, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth getting relegated. That is a big fat 0 for 3. Everton, it did take to the last day till they were safe. And Nottingham Forest were the penultimate day. Bournemouth, however, had that nice little run and ended up finding themselves to safety, in the last few weeks, which was, to me, very surprising. I thought they were actually the team with the least amount of talent coming into this Premier League campaign. You had pretty similar. You had Bournemouth. I remember, getting a little. I gave you a little eyebrow raise for this one, and this one turned out.
Yeah, I'm an idiot for the second one.
Fulham. Yeah. And last place, Everton finished last place. Again, I respect it and I appreciate it, but we were both wrong. We were both wrong on our relegation choices. I think, again, that just goes to show that we had Leicester, Leeds, and Southampton go down. It wasn't. I don't think it was totally on everyone's radar necessarily. I think there were some warning signs. In fact, not to overstep part of the segment, but you did have Leicester as a potential underachiever this year. So, but yeah, we really did not see any of those 3 coming, although it looks so obvious in hindsight that those 3 would get relegated. But the warning signs were there.
I'm just looking ahead to the overachiever, underachiever, and I just realized what I put.
You truly had the duality of man on that. My overachiever was Aston Villa, which I'm just going to say I was so right. And I was so right in that, and it hurt me to say. I didn't go back and listen. I should have go back to listen to her exact words, but I do remember saying that I feel like Steven Gerrard was going to get fired and that a new manager would come in and be very good with this team. And that is exactly what happened. And they finish in the European places. And so I'm vindicated on that front. And my underachiever is Wolves. And I don't know that this is – they finished 13th. I don't know that it's really an underachievement. I don't think that was really a roaring success. They were sort of just underwhelming. They were in the relegation spots for the first third of the season, but ultimately ended up being safe. It was kind of although next year could be interesting. Again, if they lose Lopetegui and they don't really seem to have great finances at the moment, I am curious to see what Wolves' summer looks like. And next year we could be talking about them as relegation candidates. Tom, you're overachiever and underachiever. First, you cheated. You put two teams. And you had Newcastle, which was great.
That was a great pick.
Good pick. I will say, it was a chalk pick. I think that was a lot of, but you know what? Still fair. You said it. You claimed it. Good for you. And Leeds. And you said parentheses can't decide.
Listen, I thought that Leeds was going to be a mid-table team, which was overachieving in their aspect, but they lived up to what everybody thought of them, and they're on their way back down. So I'll take that Newcastle one. I can edit this document, right? Look how easy this is.
I'm going to restrict your edit access. Tom, you did though. I gave you credit for this a lot this year because you did smartly point out Leicester as an underachievement candidate. That was your choice, and they did. I mean, they got relegated. That was a huge underachievement considering where they've been the last few seasons. I think a lot of people would have been surprised preseason to hear that Leicester would be relegated, despite the fact that it's not so surprising now when we look back at it. It's so easy to tell the story of squad never really got refreshed, and everyone just sort of looked like they had given up. They have players out of contract this summer. But it wasn't very obvious at the beginning of the year. But
No.
Even for underachieving, I'm not sure that you baked in a relegation in your underachievement. But still, it is. You were correct, and I think that was actually one of the better calls that we had in our preseason predictions overall. My top scorer, Mohamed Salah.
Listen, dude.
Listen, I'm a homer. What do you want from me? I said that this was going to be the year that people, maybe cooled it on the Mohamed Salah talk. I just want to say he had 19 goals this season. That's not a bad number. I'm okay with it. I was wrong. That's fine. Dom, you picked Haaland, and rightly so.
Listen,
fair enough.
I understand that we want fun picks on this show, and I gave that to you with Leeds and Fulham and all that. So, I get why you picked Salah, but come on, sometimes we have to be objective. We know that
it wasn't
Haaland
that
was gonna...
crazy. It was not that crazy. And listen, and I have to find our over-unders because we did that as well. But I just want to say, I did not doubt Haaland's talent. That was never a part of my discussion with Haaland. It was that
Cyborg.
I was worried about his health. He had not been healthy for the last year and a half at Dortmund, constantly with these hip and hamstring injuries. I just thought if he's out for 2 months, Mohamed Salah can step up. And again, Salah was very good. Although he wouldn't have won the Golden Boot even without him. It would have gone to Harry Kane, who had 30 goals. The quietest 30-goal season I think we've ever had. But
Yeah.
I just want to say too, Mohamed Salah had a good year. That's all. He had 19 goals and 12 assists in the league. That is very good.
That's a good year.
Yeah,
Good
thank
year.
you. And maybe we should respect him. That's all I'm going to say. Maybe he deserves a little respect. Maybe Bukayo Saka isn't a better player than Mohamed Salah. Maybe we should cool it on that. I don't know.
Whoa.
He's not. That's not even controversial. I'm sorry. That's not even close to controversial. Bukayo Saka is a tier below Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, he's not there. He's not there yet.
No, and that's fine because he's 22. It's okay.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to be. Let's go to Serie A, shall we? I will continue to look for our over-unders that we did because those were tough, let me tell you. Serie A, ooh. Uh-oh. I had Inter as
What's to expect from Italy, man? Come on.
I had Inter as champions, Milan runners-up, Lazio. I did have Lazio in my top 4. Let the record show. I had Lazio in my top 4. I was always a believer. Juventus, Roma, and Napoli in 6th. If you just shuffle Napoli to the front of the list, I'm actually pretty right. If you just shuffle them to the bottom and bump everyone down, I'm pretty on it actually. And if you get rid of the Juventus points deduction, not a bad one. Again, to be fair to myself, I did get 3 of the top 4. I got Inter, Milan, and Lazio. Napoli, again, I think it just goes to show that Napoli, considering the transfers that they had over the summer, it's very easy now to look back and say, again, we watch the games and we watch these 8-9 months, and it's become such a matter of fact. And we'll do it again this summer, where we'll make a prediction and it'll become so glaringly obvious next year how wrong we were. But Napoli were not considered a title favorite. Now the Serie A was wide open. I felt like it could have been a lot of teams to win the title, and I feel that way about next season as well. But Napoli, it seemed like we're in a bit of a transition. They had sold off some key players. They had bought. No one knew Kvaratskhelia was going to be the Serie A player of the year when he was bought. And Kim Min-jae came in with some hype, but he was certainly not going to be one of the best defenders in Serie A in people's minds. So hats off to them, though. They exceeded my expectations. Dom, why don't you read through your top 6?
Well, I was a homer. I picked Milan in first. I thought that they'd be able to potentially make some signings, bring somebody in for some help, address some issues that they needed instead of just trying to run it back. Kessie went to Barcelona, and it's just, oh God, let's not talk about them tonight. I had Juventus in second, Inter third, Roma fourth, Lazio in fifth, and Napoli in sixth. Obviously, we underrate Napoli. I don't know. I don't have respect for Lazio, but Maurizio Sarri is a good manager, so I get why Lazio has broken into the top 4. I had more faith in Roma, which is a surprise for me. I didn't think Inter had it, but you know what? If Juventus never had the point deduction, it'd be all right. Even though Milan would not be in top 4 if that happened. So
I think you would take them having the points deduction over
my 6 is a mess, dude. It's so bad. You gotta flip. If you flip this upside down, it's actually not that bad. If you take this whole thing, flip it upside down, it's not too bad. But whatever. All right, whatever.
Listen, man, you made your choice.
I get it. I'm supposed to be the Serie A guy, and my top 6.
I don't think anything you said was terrible. Again, it is not easy, and it's very easy to look back and think, wow, what a fool. But I would challenge anyone, thumbing their nose, try yourself. It's it makes you think you're being so smart in July when you make these predictions. Then you revisit them, you're like, wow, I was a fool. That's the way it goes. My bottom 3. A little better in Italy than I did in England. That's because I got 1. I had Salernitana, Cremonese, and Lecce going down. I was only right about Cremonese. The other 2 were pretty safe, all things considered. I mean, they were always near the relegation zone, but never like really, really in danger. Never really felt like they were playing for their lives all that much this year. It wasn't really going down the wire. Cremonese, however, were indeed relegated. You had Empoli, Cremonese, and Lecce. So we both picked Cremonese and Lecce to go down. Only Cremonese, of course, ended up, in fact, being relegated. I think we both looked at Cremonese and thought they just did not have the talent to hang in the top flight. But, obviously, too, we had Hellas Verona and Spezia now have a relegation playoff on Sunday. Unbelievable. So we don't even know, actually, the full 3 teams in Italy that have been relegated. We have to wait till Sunday to find that out. But Sampdoria were relegated pretty early on. Very poor showing. Tough. I don't know that we really saw that coming exactly. That felt like felt a little bizarre, to be honest. But it is what it is. My overachiever for Serie A was Lazio. Thank you very much. I will take my rewards. I also picked Empoli as my underachiever. I think based off of not this past season, but last season, the 21-22 season, where they had a pretty comfortable mid-table finish, looked like a good team. We're sort of breaking into the upper half. This could be considered an underachievement. They did lose some talent, so I don't know. Again, it's a little bit like my Wolves underachievement prediction. I don't think it was a spot-on pick, but an underwhelming season for Empoli, I would say. Tom, who did you have for your overachiever and underachiever in Italy?
Well, I hit the nail on the head with Monza as my overachiever. Berlusconi money, baby. That's
you looked at the teams that just got bought out by the millionaires. You're like, you know what? These boys, I'm going to ride with my boys. That's what I'm going to do.
Listen, well, they didn't they also they had Mario Balotelli at one point? Didn't they sign him for like
I think he's been in Turkey the whole
he's
time.
been in
I don't
Turkey the
know.
whole time? They signed
I
somebody
don't
where I
know.
was like, excuse me? And
I think it was honestly. I think it was when they bought Pashina. I think that's when you were in. I'm not even
no,
kidding.
no,
I think.
no, no. It was when I saw that Patania was going over there. Andrea
Yeah.
Patania. And I was like, oh, and then I saw who bought out the team, and I saw it was Berlusconi and Galani, and I'm like, this is great. This is my second team. I'm supporting this team. And then they made a bunch of signings. Didn't know if it was gonna work. And you know what? It did. It did. They've gotten some big wins, some surprising wins, and
They are like the reverse Nottingham Forest in that
yeah,
they signed a bunch of players, and Nottingham Forest, they ended up staying in the Premier League, of course, but it was a little bit in doubt. It had to go to the last few game weeks for Nottingham Forest to actually be confirmed for safety. Whereas Monza were like very comfortable all year at around mid-table. We're trying to finish in the upper half. So kind of the tale of two different red clubs bought by shady Mediterranean men.
my
One Greek, one Italian. A lot of hair, a lot of olives, and a lot of shady deals.
a lot of yelling, a lot of hand gestures. A lot of oregano everywhere. My underachiever was Atalanta. I thought they were going to finish outside top 6. I think I even doubted them making it into European competition this year. So just pile my face for that one, man. Didn't make it into the top 4, didn't get to the Champions League, but they are in Europa League still, so they are in Europe. 5th place still isn't bad given the parity in this league right now. It's so wide open, so it's not the worst, right?
Yeah, I think underachievement for Atalanta preseason made sense when you consider that it felt like everyone else kind of had made bigger moves in Italy, or at least were more interesting in Atalanta. It didn't feel like a lot had changed, and it didn't feel that way for a lot this season either. They were sort of languishing a little bit. They had a stronger second half of the season than they did the first. So I wouldn't call it an underachievement, but a okay season for Atalanta. I think this was an average season. They would have liked to maybe done better in the domestic cup competitions. My top scorer, Ciro Immobile.
Yikes.
Tough scenes there. Really not even close, honestly. Not even up to his typical standard. You picked Rafa Leao. Not a bad preseason guess. He ended up finishing 4th. Funnily enough, we both picked in our respective leagues. We picked our mercurial wingers. And they both finished 4th in the league in scoring with pretty decent campaigns. Rafael had 15 goals this season. It's a pretty good tally, all things considered, especially since he's not a true striker, of course. Not a bad season for Rafael. I think people have been a little harsh on him, but
2 nice goals at the end of the season too. But that, and then followed by that game was kind of culminating because he just re-signed with the team. Right, I think he re-signed a new contract, and then he celebrated, I think, the first goal by patting the badge with a big smile on his face, and then proceeds to absolutely embarrass the goalie for his second one, which was just a very nice thing to see.
Yeah, he's a really, really fun player to watch. Damn, I found
big
our
talent.
Preseason over-unders.
Yikes.
And I'm just going to tell you now, these are tough. The Arsenal over-under was at 65 points. Dom, you went over, and you were correct. I said under. So shout out to you. You believed in Arsenal the whole time. Arsenal ended up finishing. What was their exact? They finished with 84 points, so they cleared that. By a significant margin. Aston Villa over under 50 points. We both said over. We were correct. We were both on that. Cleared that by 11 points. They finished on 61. So shout out to us. We got that right. Oh man, Leicester City over under 51 points. Dom, you said under. Keeping in line with your pick of them being an underachiever, I said over. Tough scene for me. Tough beat. Tough beat for both of us. Newcastle over under 55. We both said under. That was obviously incorrect. Newcastle made it finish on 71 points. Spurs over under. We had 74 points. I don't think I wrote this correctly. I just said both.
Both.
I think we said under. I'm going to be honest. I really do think we both said under. and I'm gonna guess. But we were high on Spurs coming into the season, so we actually might have said over on this. I'm not totally sure. Either we were probably wrong. I think we might have said over on this because I think we were considering them as a potential like third place team and like they could bring some parity. But anyway, United over under 66 points. We both said under. They finished with 75 points, so they cleared that. So not our best with the point totals. However, with goal scorers,
that was about 50%,
which is not bad. Richarlison over under at 10 goals. We both hit under, and it did hit under. In fact, he had a very disappointing campaign in the league. This one is the tough one. Haaland over under 24.5. Dom, you said over. I said under. Again, I just want to say,
hammer the
fucking
over.
I just want to say, it was all injuries for me. That was it. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
I'll bring up the tape. I will bring up the tape. I don't care.
That man's a cyborg.
Okay,
Look at him now, like absolute Viking king.
Gabriel Jesus over under 14.5 goals. We both went under, and that was correct. I don't know what the hell we were thinking with this one. Raheem Sterling over under 15, and we both said over. I have no idea why we thought Raheem Sterling was going to get like 16 league goals.
Were we talking 15 goals and assists, or were we like
even that? I think we. Good luck. Given
the way Chelsea was this year, yeah, that's awful. I guess we were high on Chelsea.
I think we might have just been high on Sterling. I honestly I don't know. I don't know what that was. I can't really explain myself there. That's it. That was our preseason stuff. It was a lot of fun. It's fun returning back and sort of laughing at yourself a little bit and realizing, you know what, it's not that serious, and you can be right and you can be wrong. We were mostly right. I think we got some of the bigger stuff right. Then that's what matters. We're committed to getting things mostly right. Not perfect, but mostly right.
Don't use us for your betting habits.
No,
we're not professional advice givers. We just talk about a sport.
This is not financial advice at all. So let's talk a little bit just about the relegation teams, because we got Leicester, Leeds, Southampton going down in England, and we have Sampdoria and Cremonese confirmed going down in Italy. One of Hellas Verona and Spezia will be going down in Italy as well. Especially in England, it's interesting because Leicester are going down, and they've been a team over the past few seasons that have impressed. They have an FA Cup win in the last few years, a team that was constantly flirting with Champions League qualification. I think this should be a cautionary tale to the Brighton and Aston Villas of the world, in that, sure, you might be flying high now, but in 4 years, if you don't manage your affairs properly, not just in a bad place, but getting relegated in a very challenging place. So Leicester City, I think, are a good case study for these other teams to understand that you have to sell at the right time, but you're not going to get recruitment right all the time. You just aren't. Yeah. You're not going to be 100%. I know that everyone is fawning over Brighton, and they deserve a lot of respect and congratulations for what they've done, but it is hard every year when you sell off 2 or 3 pieces and you have to replace them, and they have to be up to that same standard right away. It's a treadmill that is constantly going faster and on a steeper incline. And if you're not careful, you are going to fall off that treadmill. Yeah. And you really have to be cautious. I think is the thing with Leicester, and they were not that. I think they made bad decisions. They had bad wage structure. They were one of the top spenders in the Premier League in terms of wages. They got themselves in a bad financial spot. It's a tough scene there.
Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time. Everton's dropped even from being a mid-table team for the same reasons, right? They're not making the right signings, and you're not always going to hit. And these clubs that don't always have that kind of money, the only way they can make money is by selling their best players. You become a feeder team for the top 6, or if you got somebody who's world class, they're going they could be won by any big club in the world. So you can't turn down that money at some points. You have to manage your team correctly. And we're seeing the culmination of that with Leicester. We're starting to see maybe the rumblings of it with Chelsea, given the way that they made these contracts to make all these signings, and it's tough. It's tough. But I I don't even. What are the odds of a team that goes down comes right back up? Do you think that Leicester has the team that would be able to like get right back up?
Leicester, I think, are one of the favorites to return right away. It's tough though. I mean, ask Stoke, ask Sunderland what it's like to ask Norwich or Watford even.
Yeah,
This past
that's true.
season. Burnley have come right back up, and I think you'll see a few teams that kind of yo-yo throughout. Fulham were notorious for this over the last few years; like they would go down, come back up. Norwich were the same again this year that they weren't able to do so. It's a challenge, and the championship is hard. It's a hard season. It is a hard thing. You have to finish in the top two, and then you go to the playoff system, which can be a bit of a crapshoot as well. So there's no guarantees that you come right back, and that is the danger too. Is that again. Sunderland are a good example of that. You've even seen teams that have completely dropped off or been in terrible financial situations that have been, I don't want to say regulars in our lifetime, but at least teams that we associate with the Premier League, like a Derby County, right, which are just terrible now and then in terrible spots. Swansea even, have not been back in the Premier League in some time. So Cardiff, where you bounced around a few times, but
Portsmouth
are, the big example of bad financial bets going very wrong. But yeah, it's no guarantee that you come back. And I think that's the thing to be aware of if you're one of these relegated clubs. Southampton, it felt like sort of pivoted to being a team that knew probably wasn't going to be in the Premier League. They bought really young this past summer. And it seems like they were gearing up to potentially, try and focus on that in a championship campaign. But
I think what's sad about them is that they were running their club well with signings. And I mean, you got to think this is the club that like had Virgil van Dijk and Sadio Mane and some of these other guys that, have turned into really good players, a young James Ward-Prowse. Like, they seem to have been doing it right, and they haven't been consistent enough since then. Right. They kind of like misused all of that money that they made from those signings. Like when they sold off Virgil, they sold off Sadio, and like for what, signing Theo Walcott?
They did have ownership change, as well, which is always a little bit challenging. Leeds have an interesting ownership situation too, because they were sort of in the process of being sold, and then they got into a relegation fight, and then they fire a manager, and then fire another manager, and then so it's a little unclear what's going to be happening with Leeds over the summer and their direction. But yeah, stable ownership is important. Making good, like balanced decisions is important. It can be a little boring, but that's what you got to do. You got to be smart and listen. And in a league as competitive as the Premier League with as much money, you have to find a niche, and you have to find a way to differentiate yourself and a way to get an edge on teams and on other clubs. That's what you have to do.
How many players do you think leave Leeds? Because there's some good talented players on that team. I know,
I think it's always less than people expect.
I know Gnonto has been like rumored to be,
Gnonto could
courted by.
Sure. I think they're Tyler Adams. I think is probably a player I'd expect to not be there. Jack Harrison potentially. Rodrigo. McKennie. McKennie's returning back to Juventus. Who knows what his future looks like, to be honest.
He's about to be sold to the MLS.
They bought Ruter from Hoffenheim, and he just never really seemed like a perfect fit. I wonder what his future is. But yeah, I think Rodrigo, Tyler Adams, and Jack Harrison. Those are the three that I would be, most interested in if I was another team. And I think probably could be gone. Tom, we did have some cup finals in between our shows. Just yesterday, we had West Ham outlast Fiorentina, breaking my heart. A Jared Bowen 90th minute winner. It hurt in so many ways because I love Jared Bowen, and I'm always a big J-Bo fan, but Fiorentina are my sort of Italian kinship, so it was tough to see them lose in that manner. In a weird way, I felt very happy for David Moyes. I don't know how to process these complex emotions because he's managed two of my least favorite clubs. And yet I was so happy that he finally won a major trophy. His only other trophy he's won in his career because, by the way, Everton have not won a trophy since 1995. But David Moyes, wins only the Community Shield up until this. And then goes on to win. See, listen, it's a Europa Conference League. It is not the holy grail of European football, but it is a major European trophy. Is breaks a long trophy drought for West Ham as well. And so it's hard for me to not
beat a team that like is fairly respected, like in Serie A too, which is a competitive league this year. We've seen that Italian football is like
Fiorentina
something
also
serious.
the first team to play in all 4 major European finals. So like they got that. They got history as well. Sorry, there's like a fly. I'm not just like just swiping. I just want everyone to know if anyone's watching, I'm not going crazy. There's just like a little gnat around here, and I'm just trying to get it. So Fiorentina, lose kind of in heartbreaking fashion. Again, for David Moyes, I was happy to see it. And his dad was there too. His dad is like, I think 87. And they had this like, really wholesome moment. I always love this part of players that win finals, and you see with managers sometimes now, even with Moyes, where they're like parents or something, or their families like on the sideline, and they give their mom or dad the medal, and they like take a nice. I don't know, like it reminds you that like this is a 99% of athletes will never win a trophy. Like they just won't. Like It is so hard to win a league title, a cup, whatever it is. Like it is a thing to be celebrated. Like no matter what it is, and you have to take the victories in life, and that just there's something about the celebrations there that made me happy. So shout out to West
what made
Ham
me not happy was the way that the West Ham fans were acting. It broke skin on Baragi's head throwing a bottle at him. It's kind of crazy.
It was a bleeder for sure. That was a very tense moment at the end of the first half where he was trying to take a corner and gets pelted. They're going to get in some trouble for that. They're going to be the Europa League next year. I would imagine for like an away match or something, no fans or something like. There's going to be some kind of penalty like that for them, and deservedly so, because you can't be doing that. You can't be throwing things at players. Because listen, you throw things like 60, 70 feet like that, and they pick up some speed. Like it doesn't matter how light you think it is. Like that can hurt you pretty seriously.
I'll tell you
what. That's what you saw.
I'm a very happy man. It makes me very happy and warm inside to see that my guy Jack scored in a European final.
Beautiful
he
goal
deserves
too.
It. Yeah, he deserves it.
Goal.
I mean, man, all the glory years, as I call them.
It was right there for us. It was right there for my Viola.
Man.
I was
damn it.
I was crestfallen in many ways, but shout out to West Ham. They'll be back in the Europa League next year with Liverpool. Maybe. Maybe we'll have that to look forward to.
Help me out in FIFA though, but this isn't a FIFA podcast, so I'm not.
There it is.
There it is. Check it off the bingo board.
Let's talk about Europa League final then, shall we? Sevilla won, Roma won. Sevilla ended up winning on penalties. Tough scenes for Roma with the penalty.
What was that penalty lineup? It was
a lot of center
3
backs.
defenders. Like
I go back and forth with this because I think people have a tendency to look at center backs and think, like you should have a striker, and I think there's truth to that, but I don't know. I also think that center backs can be very capable of this kind of stuff, and defenders can be pretty technical too. But I think you probably should be rolling out your attacking options for penalties in such a big situation. So I think it's fair to question what happened there, but also, when you're up against Sevilla, it is.
You want to talk about championship DNA?
Well, you want to talk about dark magic versus dark magic, because this was the first goal, by the way, that a Mourinho-led club had conceded in a major European final, was against Sevilla, and it was an own goal, of course, but not a great night for Mancini, by the way, either. He had an own goal, had a penalty saved, and just all around not a top performance from him. But yeah, Sevilla are just kings of Europe again in the Europa League. It has just become a staple with them over the last 7 or 8 years that you can expect. They'll be in the Europa League. They will be competitive in the Europa League. In fact, they will win the Europa League.
This is their identity, right? They're like a okay team in the Champions League. They get themselves to the Europa League and just go on and win it every single time. It's like you want to talk about a team finding its niche and what it does. Like that's Sevilla. That is Sevilla. you'll be like, all right, I get to play a little bit of Champions League, get to play some really good competition, but then, we'll be all right. We may challenge for top 3 in La Liga or have one really, really good year. But one thing's always for sure, we're going to get near or around the Europa or in the Europa League final. And if we do, we win it. They coasted the Black Magic. They get an own goal and just coast by until penalties and just absolutely run away with it. It's incredible.
Yeah, I did think Roma were a little unlucky, which is the story of their season, though, is that they haven't been clinical enough in front of goal, and it does come back to bite them in the final. It does seem like Mourinho is going to stay as manager, so that's, I think, a positive for them. I think it's a weird season for them because they did put so much stock on this Europa League run in the last month and a half of the season, which is fair enough. I mean, when you have the opportunity to make it to another European final and a final like this, which gets you into the Champions League, it's worth putting a lot of your focus on that. But obviously when you lose that final, it does feel like a little bit of a loss. They're going to be back in Europa League next season. They qualified through that through the league. The goal, I think, for them was certainly to be in the Champions League next year, and they had a really good opportunity to do so. But I'm curious to see the direction Mourinho takes them. They don't have a ton of money, and don't know what's going to happen with Dybala and that potential release clause this summer. There's questions to be answered. We don't know about Tammy Abraham's future exactly. So they're an Italian club I'm looking at with a lot of interest this summer.
Because of those concerns that you said, my hot take is that Mourinho leaves, Milan signs him.
It seems like he's staying, though. I would be surprised. I don't think. I think if he leaves Roma, I don't think it's for Milan. I'll say that.
I wouldn't put it past him.
I would put it past the Milan ownership, which is not interested in paying people. So how much Mourinho costs.
He managed Chelsea and Manchester United.
Those are not the same as Inter and Milan. I'll say that much. And I'm not sure I see it. That's all I'll say. I'm not sure I see it.
And there's a young generational Portuguese talent on the team. If this new regime of a new future of Milan is serious, that's where you go.
I don't think that this is going to end the way you think it's going to end. I think
FIFA career.
I'm going to let you live in FIFA whatever reality.
Football Manager 2024 on easy. That's what it is.
I'm going to let you live in whatever reality that you've built for yourself. You seem very comfortable there, and you seem very happy. And I'm not going to disturb you. I won't do that.
Listen, this is what I do. I build myself up just to be thrown into the pits of depression every time they make a decision. So,
and that is the joy of fandom, is it not? I mean, that's why we do what we do. That's why we watch these games. That is why we care so much about things that hurt us in so many ways. Down with the Champions League final on Saturday. Listen, I know obviously that you want Manchester City to win this because you can't stand to see Inter win a Champions League, and that is fine. I understand you.
Trouble.
I can't say I agree necessarily, but listen, I do think it's interesting because both teams actually have besides the fact that it's the Champions League final, Manchester City have a treble. Inter have a cup double. This could be a great season for them. I would already say it's a good season. They finished top 4. I already have Coppa Italia in the bag. You had a Champions League onto that. I mean, Christ alive. And listen, I know Gus is very interested in what the massive Interisti here. Oh my goodness, look at this guy. Who's your favorite player? Oh, Nico Barella, just like me. Wow, interesting.
Linus is the same color as the iconic Ronaldo Pirelli jersey that they have too. You're talking about Inter, the black and gray stripes.
Well, first of all, this was Augustus. This was not Linus.
Oh, sorry.
I know my cats look a little similar, but it's all good. He didn't hear you. He's wistfully playing right next to me. He's all right. I love this quote from DeMarco in the lead up to this game because I think it encapsulates so much about these two teams. He said, "It is a dream for us, winning the Champions League, and an obsession for them," which I think really does kind of demarcate it very well because it sort of points out that Inter we're not really expected to be in a Champions League final. To be at this stage is a little unexpected for them. And, listen, but they earned their way here. They had a challenging group. They beat good teams along the way. It's not like they waltzed to a Champions League final. No one does. It's never an easy route to a Champions League final. And it has been an obsession with Manchester City, whether they want to admit it or not, because I think the fans like to pretend like they don't care about Europe and all this. But it is what separates you from being an elite European club and not. And Manchester City have done a lot on the domestic side to be considered in that realm. Until you're winning 3-4 Champions Leagues in your history, though, you just aren't, and that's not even, I'm not even trying to like gatekeep the boys club here. And it's like, you're not with us, but it is the truth. If you don't have that European pedigree that is a massive difference. It is what separates the Madrids, Barcelonas, Milans, Liverpools, Bayerns from other clubs. Is this history, this pedigree of European dominance and success.
Yeah, the City has won the league for so many years now, but like when you still like think of like the Premier League, I guarantee you that Manchester United comes to mind before Manchester City, and that's just because they have that history.
Depends on what age of the person that you're asking. I think if you ask like a 14-year-old that, it's Manchester City. Their dominance has been.
Yeah, that's true.
I know for us, Manchester would definitely be one of the first teams you think of, but I do think for this next generation, I mean, they've won a lot of titles.
That's true.
Over the last decade, and they have some of the most interesting and popular players. Erling Haaland. There's been a lot of stories about how they have this whole social media strategy with him, and that they understand. And this happens with the NBA, right? Where like you're finding less and less with the younger generation that teams are less important. They're much more interested in players. They're much more interested in being a fan of a player and will follow that player, especially in the NBA where and it's similar in soccer in some ways, there's definitely.
They learned it from Messi and Ronaldo.
I think you could certainly say that that's part of it, but you have this sort of like stan culture too, and you have on Twitter and online spaces, especially you have entire pages devoted to like one player. And
finally Ronaldo.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of times it's like the worst opinions you've ever heard, and you have to remind yourself that there's a 14-year-old on the other side of the screen. But I do think it's a big shift, and so Manchester City, whether we think it or not, I think for younger minds are becoming the faces of the Premier League. But winning a Champions League is how you become in the establishment, the old money, if you will, to finally be accepted. And I think they're the favorites, of course, for this final, but I do think it could be a close one. And listen, I don't know if you've seen the egg Twitter, the egg video circulating on Twitter that has accurately predicted the Champions League thus far, where they have two eggs and they put the team badge on there and they smash them together, and whoever remains unscathed advances. It does have Inter beating, and it has predicted this like long ago. This was not even just like for just this final. It did have Inter making it to the final against Manchester City and winning. So if you believe in the power of egg, I would recommend, pursuing that option and at least considering the long shot possibility that Inter could be Champions League winners. But we will know for sure next week when we return, the outcome there. I am looking forward to another Champions League final. Always a great game. It's always a lot of fun. Always a lot at stake.
Shall we talk about my favorite part of the end of the season? I love the off season because of the transfer rumors. You know me, I lurk on Twitter all the time, so I see anything and everything when it comes to that. Fabrizio Romano is always popping up. So for the biggest news, right, in the transfer roundup is Karim Benzema's making buku money in Saudi Arabia, signed for Al Ittihad. He's making like 400,000 a day. Like it's stupid money.
Absolutely obscene. Absolutely obscene.
And if I'm not mistaken, did N'Golo Kante not agree on terms with them as well?
N'Golo Kante is also going to Saudi Arabia. I don't remember which club. I don't know if it's the same one as Benzema, but he's also going to Saudi Arabia as well. I think it's $100 million contract. Insane money. I mean, just especially for N'Golo Kante, who's like just not been able to stay healthy for the last 4 years now. Crazy prices.
Motherfuckers are going to be building Saudi teams on Ultimate Team next year. Just Think about that.
And
That's
there's
crazy.
FIFA reference number 2 of the evening. Thank you, Dom. Benzema being out at Madrid is interesting because we've talked about Harry Kane and what that might look like. Real Madrid have an opening. They've just brought in another generational talent, English talent, in Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, I don't think he leaves because they found Modric's replacement. Here it is. Modric is now, even though he's timeless, it's just weird. Would you say this is more a Modric or a Kroos replacement?
I think this is the
successor. Sorry, not replacement, successor.
In the next 2 years, they're done. I this time for real. Kroos and Modric both seem like I think this upcoming season might be Kroos's last, if this even is his last. It's that their future is not totally in stone, but they've made they got Tchouaméni. Kamavinga has been playing sometimes midfield, sometimes at left back position. A little bit nebulous for him, but they do have midfield options in a lot of ways, and
they do the same thing with Valverde.
Valverde, of course, is incredibly versatile. They do have adding Bellingham to this mix is just ridiculous. It is just it's not a crowning jewel, but it is a big statement from them. And I would be a little worried, and I am a little worried. I do think Harry Kane in Madrid. You've already heard about it, but I'm just saying is all I'm saying. That's you know what I'm saying. Is he really down for not even being in any kind of European competition next year with Spurs? He's already tried forcing a move. I don't think it's crazy to consider that Harry Kane could want to be out.
You know what?
I really don't.
Spurs cannot turn down Real Madrid money if they come knocking on the door either. It would be stupid from them.
Speaking of Luka Modric, they have this special relationship with Real Madrid, which essentially means when Real Madrid want to buy one of our best players, we will sell them to Real Madrid, but and really not get anything in return for it. So I do wonder if we see that crop up again.
That's a good point, Matt. It's a good point.
Alexis McAllister to Liverpool for reportedly $35 million,
Steal.
Which is unbelievable price for anyone in football these days. That is just a crazy price. A good piece to start rebuilding the midfield, which has been the source of many woes for Liverpool this past season. Some other things to keep in mind. For Leicester City, James Maddison will be on the move. It's going to be very curious to see where he ends up. Harvey Barnes as well from Leicester. We'll see what he ends up doing. In terms of what sort of mid-table or kind of aspiring European clubs want to go after him. Declan Rice. This is probably his swan song. Gets to go out with a cup for West Ham. Seems like he's moving on this summer. It could be Arsenal. They are, I think, one of the favorites to sign him. It would be interesting to see him in that midfield. But we're obviously going to be getting more and more rumors, more and more confirmed transfers as well as we roll on to the summer. And we'll keep you locked and updated with all of that. Dom, anything to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, a little SerieA transfer rumor mill going. Apparently, Man United is targeting Kim Min-jae. Seems like that.
He has a release clause.
Yeah.
He has a release clause, and it does seem like Kim Min-jae is probably out at Napoli this summer.
Napoli also looking to bring in Vincenzo Italiano. We're talking managers here. And Nikola Milenkovic over as well. They allegedly Roma has gotten into advanced talks with Indica. Milan is trying to swoop in. Who knows if that's going to happen? Di Maria may be going to Inter Miami. I know that PSG and Milan are competing for Marcus Thuram. Apparently, Kamada is like a go to Milan on the free transfer. Who knows? Also, allegedly, Real Madrid are looking to bring back Brahim Diaz. So,
I just have a hard time believing that. I really do. I don't see him fitting in at Madrid. I don't think there's really a great place for him. Could be wrong, but I
think it's more that Milan just don't want to pay the type of money that Real Madrid is going to want, to fully sign him. So
I think Real Madrid will be fair with him in that he really hasn't been a part of their plans for the last 2-3 years, and I think they're really not a club that holds people over the reins with this type of stuff, I think they'll probably find an agreeable price. I don't think he has a place at Real Madrid. I really don't, because he's also not a well-defined player as it is. He's not quite a 10. He's not quite a winger. Like, he's already occupies a weird space. That is not kind of the space that Real Madrid has for anyone. So
no, who knows? But that's basically the Italian rumor mill right now. There's also negotiations about Onana and Chelsea, but who knows?
Well, we will see. We will be back next week crowning Manchester City as treble winners. I'm sure that this is me jinxing them, but this is me reverse jinxing them by saying that Inter will win, which is a reverse jinx. Yeah, I am just layers ahead, trident layers.
Oh, wait a second. We didn't talk about probably the biggest news that came out yesterday. Messi going to Inter Miami.
We don't talk about little clubs like Inter Miami, worst team in the MLS. Not interested. Not interested, Chief.
I can't wait to see the first Messi curler. Just
yeah, you're gonna have to wait till next year to see it. So come on, this guy's not gonna play hard. Are you kidding me? Christ alive.
He doesn't need to in the MLS in order to produce some magic.
Everyone says that. Everyone says that like a player from Europe is going to go to MLS and tear it up, and they never do. It almost never works that way.
Ibrahimovic.
Sure, but even he was like, he's a very good MLS player, but
now we're talking.
It's not like he was scoring like 70 goals in the season. Like, calma, That's all I'm going to say.
We're talking.
Ask Lorenzo Insigne how he's found the MLS. That's all. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Messi does go to Inter Miami. It's just, what more is there to say that has not been said? It's definitely interesting. It's definitely an intrigue. He got a similar package to Beckham got, where he's going to get an ownership option. This is a long-term financial future for him. Obviously the World Cup is in America in 2026. I'm sure there's going to be he's going to have some part of that. He gets ticket money or subscription money from the Apple TV deal. And he's getting a percentage from Adidas for jersey sales from Inter Miami. So he's got things on the margins. And apparently the MLS is a league. All the teams sort of collected some sort of money, paid some sort of fee involved with this as well. Like, it was a group effort to bring up Messi to the MLS. I mean, it's fascinating, for us. It gives us
an
opportunity to see Lionel Messi. But I don't know if it's good for the league or not. I think you can debate either way of this. I think, sure, raises the profile of the league, whatever that means. It's such a nebulous term to begin with. I do think it's like the problem that MLS has had in my lifetime has been this kind of thing, though, where they feel the need to be a circus attraction and to have like this big main event. Yeah. And I just don't know. I don't know that is that like, does this really move the needle in MLS popularity? I guess in a material sense it does, but like in a real way, I don't know. Like, does this actually improve the quality of the league? Not really. Like, you're adding a great player to the league. I'm not debating that, but
I'm interested in seeing what like the change in revenue stream for like streaming services like Apple TV and just like viewership of the MLS.
They're locked into that contract. Like, it's a 10-year deal they signed. It's not like next year.
That's crazy.
It's not like next year they're going to get to renegotiate this deal.
Well, I mean more like viewership numbers, like how many eyes are watching the MLS, like how much money from out like jersey sales and I don't know whatever else, brand deals. I don't know.
We don't have NBAs here, okay?
I get it by Messi though. It's a sneaky move. Listen. All these rumors about him going back to Spain and stuff. He doesn't want to evade his taxes anymore. So he's just going to go to a state that like barely taxes its employee, the workers in the state. So I get it. It's a cheeky move by Messi. I get it. He wants to keep most of his money, so he went and played in Florida. I see it. He's playing chess, not checkers over here.
Well, he was in the Panama Papers too, so none of them paid the taxes. Yeah, remember when that journalist released about how all the wealthy people in the world have a bunch of tax fraud schemes, and then she got blown up in a car? That's crazy. Well, we'll see you next week. Maybe. We'll be back next week to talk about the Champions League final and about Messi being on Epstein's Island. Until then,
Yo.
that was a bit. That was satire only. That was not real. It was not actionable. We'll talk to you next week, hopefully. See ya.